Freedom of Information Act, notice of meetings and agendas were posted and furnished to all news media and persons requesting notification.
Excellent, thank you. I'd like to welcome Adam McConnell from North Charleston, second from the end here, replacing Shannon Prady, who retired. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
If we could have, actually, would you like to do a short intro? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be good. Adam, you want to do just a quick intro?
Bio, sort of?
Yeah.
I am a husband and father first. I serve as the Director of Special Projects for the City of North Charleston. That means I do long-range planning, transportation, capital projects, environmental, business, and community development. It's a whole lot. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in consulting engineering with GEL Engineering. It's an environmental engineering firm. I'm a geologist, geochemist by training.
Half of those today, and then half of those a week from today. These are six urban projects. That you'll hear about, and there's a good variety. You'll also hear about three rural projects today, and then many more next week. And conservation easements are back. As you'll see, we've got two conservation easements, Scrambler's Knob Horse Farm and Russell Creek Farm conservation easements, and then Store Creek Park down on Edisto as well. That's a fee simple project. Just like good variety, we've got a nice spread of projects throughout the county this cycle. This shows all 18 stretching all the way up from right on the Santee River all the way down to Edisto. And then this slide focuses in on the 9 projects you'll consider today. Going from the northeast to southwest, we've got the 2 Mount Pleasant Way projects, Mathis Ferry and Benning Road, the Isle of Palms Beach Access, 26A and 36A, and then moving across the rivers over to West Ashley, the Harmony Public Tract, Red Top Community Park, just inside the urban growth boundary in that unincorporated area, James Island Family Park, Scrambler's Knob Horse Farm Conservation Easement, Russell Creek Farm Conservation Easement, and the Store Creek Park. What I really want you to focus on here, the bottom rows below the actual grid lines, because those totals show the impact if all 18 projects were approved. You can see the individual requests for those that you'll hear about today, but we'll get into more detail later in this meeting on those. So there is a total request of just under 11.4 million in rural funds. There's about 20.7 available. So if all were approved, there will be just under 9.3 million left for the second cycle, our winter cycle that'll be coming up soon. And then if you look at total urban, that request is just under 4.8 million with 8.1 available, leaving about 3.3 million in urban funds for the winter cycle if all projects are approved. And then total, that would be 12.6 million available for the remaining cycle. And then the bottom row shows lifetime projected allocations, which are all pretty high. Okay, ready to jump right into our project considerations. And just real quickly, how this will work is I will present each project individually, and I don't think we had anybody sign up to comment on projects either, so no public comment. So after I'm finished with the presentation, feel free to ask questions, and once a motion is made, you all can go into discussions and deliberations between yourself on the merits of the project. First project I have for your consideration is from City of Isle of Palms. It's the 26A and 36A beach access improvements. Very similar to the projects you've seen from them recently. They're located, 26A is right here on the map, and 36A on the right side of the screen. And the intent of these projects are to improve access to the beach. These are areas where even with just normal rains or even higher tides, there's considerable amount of flooding on the beach access paths that exist there. as you can see in this photo as well. So there's a photo of each access site there. Total request is for $262,000 for minor improvements only, which, as a reminder, only the beach communities are eligible to do minor improvement only projects. It is in the urban area. They're offering a 9% match of $23,400, which includes planned improvement, survey, and a phase 1 environmental. We didn't receive any letters in support or in opposition to the project. The subcommittee did recommend approval of $315,000. Oh, that is off. Oh, sorry. I forgot. We had a price reduction on this one. That's a good thing. Just last week, they got bids in for the actual work, and the low bid came in at $262,000. So while the subcommittee recommended $315,000, the request has since been reduced by Isle of Palms down to $262,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions for Eric on this one? Or a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Next.
Next project for your consideration is the first of 2 Mount Pleasant Way projects. As a reminder, the Mount Pleasant Way is, I believe, 20 miles of interconnected primary routes throughout town, as well as some secondary routes connecting residences and commercial areas to those primary arteries. And the location of this one is Mathis Ferry to Eagle Street. So this one would pick up where a previously funded, Greenbelt funded project would leave off at Eagle Street on Mathis Ferry and then run all the way down Mathis Ferry on the south side to Highway 17. And I should also note the next project you'll hear about from the Mount Pleasant Way would pick up where this one leaves off on Venning. So the request is for just over $1 million for almost 2 miles of Mount Pleasant Way. It's a corridor project in the urban area, with $535,000 of this being administrative fees related to right-of-way or easement acquisition. The match being offered is substantial at $2.3 million. That's 229% match, and is for design and planned improvements. Those funds are coming from the U.S. DOT Safe Streets and Existing Roads for All grant. They did have 2 public meetings, received 19 letters in support. They also did a community survey with 60 in favor, 30 opposed, and 10 maybes. And the subcommittee did recommend approval of $1,006,000 in Town of Mount Pleasant urban funds. Happy to answer any questions.
I do have Christiane's recusal here
Yes,
too.
on
Thank
this
you.
one and the next item.
Any questions for Eric on this one? Or perhaps a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Fantastic. That one carries.
And then the second of 2 Mount Pleasant Way project is the previously mentioned Venning Road to Venning Road from US 17 to Rifle Range Road segment of the Mount Pleasant Way, which will run along the southwest side of Venning. It's another corridor project. 17 is right here, and Rifle Range is down at the traffic circle here. So the request is for $454,000 for 4,650 linear feet of Mount Pleasant Way, a corridor project in the urban area. $237,500 is for admin fees associated with easement acquisition. The match is $980,000. That's 216% match, and will be used for design and planned improvements coming from Town of Mount Pleasant funds. They did receive 19 letters in support, had the 2 public meetings, had 87% in favor, 5% opposed, and 8% maybe on their public survey, and the subcommittee recommended approval of $454,000.
Very good. Any questions for Eric on this one? No? Perhaps a motion?
Move to approval.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, thank you. So we have a motion and a second for approval on Venning Road Trail. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The motion carries.
Next project for your consideration is the Harmony Public Tract from City of Charleston. You can see the location over here in West Ashley, represented by that green triangle. Just to orient you, Glenn McConnell comes down this way, and then Bees Ferry runs behind it. This is Canterbury Woods neighborhood on the northeast side of it. And it would also be across Church Creek from an existing city park. It is the green portion of the parcel shown over on the right, so the yellow portion is not included in the project. And the city's request is for just over $1 million for fee simple acquisition of almost 115 acres in the urban area. 26.5 thousand of that is for admin fees, and they're offering a $1.3 million match. That's 128%. You can see the breakdown below there, 250,000 for the land acquisition, 12,000 for admin, and just over $1 million in landowner donation of value. This project would expand public green space and prevent further degradation of the Church Creek Basin's ability to manage stormwater. They did receive 9 letters in support of the project, and the subcommittee recommended approval of $1,026,500 in City of Charleston urban funds. Questions?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
I'm certainly in favour of the project, but just as a matter of interest, where is the city now in terms of its allocation and its entitlement? Are we in a deficit?
No, sir. If approved, the city would still have over 2.5 million left in next
Thanks.
cycle.
Just for clarification, on the yellow portions, so the larger piece is a planned residential
This
development.
yellow segment, and Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that is age restricted residential, and then I believe the corner piece will be commercial.
Commercial.
The initial plans were for subdivision throughout most of the parcel.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The motion carries.
Next project for your consideration is the James Island Family Park, submitted by Town of James Island. And that location is off of Fort Johnson Road, down Sea Air, and Mill Point. Kind of dead ends into the property. It's this beautiful property right here at the end. And their request is just over $938,000 for just over 6 acres for a fee simple acquisition for a public park on this land. Their request is just for the land acquisition. They're offering over a $2 million match. That's 218%. Part of that is land acquisition, as well as $13,000 for admin, $100,000 for their own minor improvements, and $100,000 for other improvements they'll make to the property. As I mentioned, the intent is for it to be a passive park. Looks like it could be a park tomorrow if approved. And they did receive 6 letters in support of the project. Subcommittee recommended approval of $938,716 in Town of James Island urban funds. Questions?
Any thoughts or questions for Eric?
Not a question, but I had a chance to, not during our site visit, I wasn't able to make that, but drive by myself, and it really is a gorgeous piece of property.
Perhaps a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
Next project for your consideration is Red Top Park, and this was initially submitted by Red Top Improvement Association. Location is off of Old Charleston Road, that kind of cuts the corner if you're heading west from Main Road back over towards 17. And it's about as I mentioned, about a half mile from the urban growth boundary located along this dotted line here. This is the property highlighted in green. I think it's about 3.3 acres of high ground in this area. So the request is for $1,085,500 to acquire 6.1 acres, fee simple, in the urban unincorporated area. The breakdown is $775,500 for land, $10,000 admin, and $300,000 for minor improvements. No matching funds were offered with the initial submission. Just some notes: this has been in the community. Has been a community park for decades, as they currently have a lease with the school district who owns the property. Just want to give you a little update on this one. So after the subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee did recommend deferral pending submission of three individual items: an appraisal, a budget for the minor improvements, and evidence of a willing seller, being the school district. So they've started working with Low Country Land Trust and Charleston County Parks and Rec Commission to address some of these, and it appears that we'll have all three of those boxes checked before next week's meeting. So we anticipate that this will come back to a subcommittee meeting before the full GAB meeting next Wednesday to reconsider this project and make a new recommendation to the GAB. But the one that's before you here today is the one that the subcommittee made on this project initially, which is to defer pending submission of those three items. And that is staff recommendation right now to let the process play out and come back next week. One change is that Low Country Land Trust will be the ones submitting the application now, and this will be done through our small landowner program. And all parties have agreed to that. I think that'll be a good thing. They have received 5 letters in support of the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this one.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, subcommittee meeting next week prior to the full GAB meeting, and then will that be heard at the GAB meeting?
Yes, sir. Assuming these
okay.
3 items are submitted prior to next Wednesday.
So I'm hearing that this application is pretty much null and void because a new one's going to come in that's going to replace this. Is that what I'm...
They'll update their application with a new
Okay.
budget and some additional information like the new appraisal. So the ask is likely to come down some.
Okay.
But
So in order to make that happen, I guess I'm trying to figure out, is it to defer until essentially next week?
staff recommends, yes, accepting the subcommittee's recommendation because we still haven't received those three items. Once we do, then we already have the meeting planned. It's been advertised, so as long
Okay.
as everything comes in on time, you will hear that deferral at next week's subcommittee meeting, and then the GAB will hear your recommendation from that meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
And in theory,
Is that
they match.
confusing enough?
Yeah. No. I was surprised to see it on today. I was assuming it would just be on next week's agenda, but I get it now. It makes sense.
And in theory, the match gets way better as well, correct? That's part of what we're planning on. Or hoping.
Commissioners,
That was not, go ahead, Mark.
just to help clarify, the reason it's on the agenda today is because the subcommittee recommendations are always forwarded to the GAB. So that's the reason why it's here today. And so the subcommittee did recommend deferring it, which would then send it back to them, if that answers your question.
Yes. Yeah. I got it.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
I had 2 questions before the presentation. One of them was moot, but the other one I was worried about not worried, just going to ask the question about the association, but that's been passed over to the Low Country Trust. The other thing is that this came before us before we had an indication that the school board was interested in selling or doing a deal. Is this normal? I mean, this really didn't meet all of the criteria to come before.
Yeah, so we did discuss that leading up to this, and it was anticipated that they would get the school board's willingness to sell prior to it going to the full GAB. And we, as a staff, told them to keep working on that, and we would let it go. But obviously, we would not let it go forward to council if we didn't have that sign off by the school board by then.
And so we would need a motion for approval of the deferral.
Yeah. Okay, approval of the deferral or just deferral again, doesn't matter. I don't know. But
Yeah.
approval of the deferral until next week.
Second.
Subject to all that information being submitted.
Okay, I believe we have a motion and a second. Is that correct? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Great. Thank you very much.
All right, transitioning over to the rural side. First project I have for your consideration is the Scramblers Knob Horse Farm Conservation Easement submitted by South Carolina Farm Bureau Land Trusts. And some of you may not be familiar with this organization. It is fairly new, and as the name suggests, they're really focused on agricultural lands and working farmlands. This property is located on Johns Island off of River Road. Actually, Abapula Creek runs right through the property. It comes back this way. Creek is up front. And it is surrounded by Mullet Hall, Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission. And the request is for $213,500 for a conservation easement covering 58 acres in the rural area. $200,000 of that is for land, $13,500 for admin, offering a $570,000 match. That's 267% with a healthy landowner donation and value. So this is a considerable bargain sale. And they've also received $160,000 from the South Carolina Conservation Bank. This is a horse farm and is intended to be so. The easement would bar any subdivision. It would protect a 17-acre natural area surrounding Abapula Creek. It would allow for one new residence and one new ag structure within defined envelopes on the property. And as sometimes is the case for conservation easements, no letters of support or opposition. Subcommittee did recommend approval of $213,500 in rural funds. Happy to answer any questions.
Thoughts or questions for Eric? Yes.
I'm fairly new. I just wanted to get some clarity there on conservation easements and on conservation easements in general. Does it provide for public access in any way when you establish these easements, or is that something that is?
We have a few that do, but typically they do not.
Okay.
So conservation easements, it stays in private hands. It's really the values associated with keeping that property undeveloped and not putting a bunch of homes or impacts on the conservation values of the property there.
Yep.
Yes,
Understood.
sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In this, oh, sorry.
It was a relatively low score. What was the reason for the low score? What was the concern? 59%.
Let's see. So I don't have my scales on me. Do you happen to have those, Kylie? Scoring scales? Where did that one come in the range? So conservation easements, while she's looking that up, typically do score lower than fee simple projects because we do have one application for all projects, but we've developed scales to kind of give you an idea where conservation easements are only compared to one another.
That's what you're looking for?
Yes.
It's a fair. Fair
So
is the range of
59.
55 to 69.
Yeah, I think probably where the most points are lost are in the public support because this isn't a public project and they didn't go out seeking support from the public, as well as partnerships. Although they did get funds from the State Conservation Bank. But in general, these conservation easements do score lower.
Thanks.
Yes, Andrew.
Eric, if I remember correctly, during the subcommittee meeting, just to talk about public access, I don't think that we specifically talked about public access, but we talked about some coordination between the landowner and CCPRC because it is surrounded by that park, and about how maybe like expanding some trails that would maybe go through this property. Is that accurate?
I don't think that was the exact scenario. I think
Okay.
what was discussed was that should the owner decide to sell, that there was some consideration of a first right of refusal
That's
for
right.
Charleston
Okay,
County
yep.
Parks and Rec Commission, which I think is certainly a possibility, but they did request that that not be,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
a linchpin of your approval.
Jason?
So you had indicated that the Farm Bureau Land Trust is a newer organization. Are we confident in their standing and their staffing and their ability to oversee and monitor the conservation easement?
I'm confident in that. They've gotten several awards already from the State Conservation Bank. They've got several easements throughout the state that they're monitoring. Two of their staff's here today, if you'd like to hear a little bit more.
I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
So at this point, we could discuss it further after a motion, or any other comments for Eric?
Is that right of refusal in place with this? You said first right of refusal if they sell it. Is that in place or is that not in place?
Richard, would you like to give an update on where we are with that? Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. Just to let you know, the conversation about the right of first refusal came in very late into the process. So that was when we had first talked about that, we didn't want it to be conditional because it was kind of a new development. We have had conversations with the Park Service. They are interested in having that discussion with the landowner. The landowner, Jen Rosenkrantz, is interested in having those discussions as well. So there's, confidence in it, but the process was just getting started. It was actually initiated by Parks through a conversation with the South Carolina Conservation Bank. So it was it's immature, and we didn't want it to be a contingency, but we're hopeful that it'll come together. So,
Thank you. I have a comment, but I think I should first make a motion for approval, and then I can address the scoring question if you would like for me to, Mr. Jones.
I'll second. If you make a motion,
Yes, I did.
I'll second.
Can I address the scoring thing?
Yeah.
I don't think the scoring, when the application first came through, it wasn't overwhelmingly obvious how incredibly integrated this could be with Mullet Hall. And having spent a bunch of time out there and walked around this, perhaps right along the edge of this property, it would be a real tragedy if it became something else, in my opinion. And therefore, I don't think that was really revealed in the score until, I'm sorry, tell me your name one more time. Richard, right. Richard came in and really outlined just how close it is to Mullet Hall and how, in the long term, potentially it could perhaps be integrated. So I think it probably should have scored higher. But therefore, I motion for approval, and it sounds like we have a second. Any questions to that? Eric?
Just to build on that a little bit, they could have gotten 5 more points if they'd have listed it on the market for sale in advance, because since we had a willing landowner that had a conservation ethic and wants to protect it, they get 0 points for threat of loss.
Right.
So
And it's of enormous value in the easement
That's
world.
correct.
So my motion stands. We have a second. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. All right.
All right, we're moving on to our final 2 application requests, both by Edisto Island Open Land Trust. First one is Store Creek Park, and that is located just off of Highway 74, down Point of Pines Road, and on the right, right next to Store Creek, as the name suggests. And you can see an existing dock right here. This is where the old historic road to Edisto ran and crossed onto the island before 174 was constructed. And their request is for $250,000 to acquire 1.7 acres fee simple in the rural area. This is a reimbursement project. They've already closed on it. The land request is $220,000 with minor improvement request of $30,000, offering a 60% match of $151,200. They have secured $110,000 from the South Carolina Conservation Bank and are covering the value of the existing structure at $15,000, as well as some admin and other improvements. This is intended to be a passive park with water access to Store Creek, and they did receive 3 letters in support of the project. Subcommittee recommended approval of $250,000 in rural funds. Any questions?
Mr. Jones?
The reimbursement, what they paid for the land originally, I assume, is what we're reimbursing.
We're reimbursing them a portion of that, yes, sir. And the Conservation Bank is covering the
The
rest.
balance, okay.
Yes, sir.
Jason?
Is this the one that indicated that access to the dock had to be on request and scheduled?
So there's the pier head, and then the gangway that goes down to a floating dock, and the pier head will remain open to the public for fishing and crabbing and all of that daily. But they haven't quite figured out what they want to do with the floating dock, just over liability concerns and things like that.
Got it. So the pier head remains open?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Adam, do you have a question? No. Any other questions for Eric on this one? Perhaps a motion?
Second?
Second, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Store Creek Park, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
And then the second project from Edisto Island Open Land Trust is Russell Creek Farm Conservation Easement. This is located off of Highway 174 on what I believe they call Little Edisto Island, right up here. It doesn't show it on this map, but filling in this piece would really connect a whole corridor along Little Edisto Island, which Tom pointed out in the subcommittee meeting. So the request is for $160,000 to acquire 57.6 acre, or a conservation easement on 57.6 acres in the rural area. The land request is $140,000 and admin $20,000, offering a 159% match of $255,000. That $255,000 represents the landowner donation value. Some of the easement terms are no subdivision, 2,000 square foot impervious surface limit, and then buffers around the critical areas, as well as tree protection and no additional dwellings. They received 7 letters in support, and the subcommittee recommended approval of $160,000 in rural funds. Any questions?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
And just a reminder, you'll hear the other 9 projects, likely plus Red Top, at next week's meeting on the 16th, right here again at 10 a.m. for the GAB, 9:30 for the subcommittee.
Well, I think we just set some kind of record, which is amazing, and really speaks to the strength of these projects and all y'all's hard work. So thanks for making that so apparent and easy to digest.
I'll thank my staff for that.
Yeah, seriously.
Is that here 9:30 starting for the next meeting?
Subcommittee.
Sorry?
The subcommittee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Subcommittee starts at 9:30, GAP starts at 10. Jason?
I just wanted to, for all of you that don't know, the subcommittee process, which I'm assuming most of you are a part of, if you weren't, is an exhaustive process. So it makes it easier when we receive all the information for us to be prepared as the full GAB meets. So just thank you for all the subcommittee efforts, and just wanted to note that along with staff.
I echo that.
Me too.
Even so, this one was a especially effective meeting, so thanks a lot. And unless there are any other comments, are there any other?
Not from me.
Okay, so we'll see y'all next week. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
That's about as fast as it's ever been.
That is
Especially for that whole thing. But
a
it was
world
no-
record right there.
Well, everything was already cleaned up.